Hi, Patrick here. Have Cheetah Will View. I'm still on vacation as I record this, but it is time for Tubi Tuesday, and presented by our good friend Al Lucard from the Midnight Society, my co-host from the Midnight Society, and my friend. And and I have been covering a show from 1989 called A Man Called Hawk, which aired in 1989, starring Avery Brooks and Moses Gunn. The series was a spin-off from the show Spencer for Hire. It featured Hawk, who's Spencer's best friend in the series, and the Man Called Hawk spun off to placing Hawk in Washington, D.C. and his adventures there. Unfortunately, at the time, the show did not get good ratings, so it only lasted 13 episodes. I mentioned this before, that if Man Called Hawk got the same ratings that it got when it aired then to now, it would be a major hit. In fact, nobody on the top 25 would even come close to the ratings that it got. That's how far TV landscape has changed in 30 years. So this is the 8th episode of the show. It only lasted 13, and it's called Poison. And what's a little bit remarkable about this episode is that for the first time, Robert Parker, along with his wife Joan, wrote the screenplay, wrote the story for the episode. So this is the first time that he's been involved in it. So this episode, this is a little weird one. I have to admit, this is a little weird one. So the story opens up with Hawk at a embassy. He's at a function, and he's there with his friend, a reporter named Carol, and he's meeting different diplomats and what have you. And when all of a sudden there's a sudden cry, and everybody rushes to the bathroom, and we see a young woman who's dead, and it's clear that she's overdosed on heroin. So, what a nasty drug. So, obviously they take her in, and her father is a diplomat. He's heartbroken about it. Of course, he can't believe it happened. And they take her body in, and they find out that she died of a hot shot. Someone had laced the heroin with strychnine, meaning that anybody who's taken a shot off that batch of heroin was more likely going to die or become extremely sick. So Hawk decides to get involved because he can go places that nobody else can. His friend Carol's a good reporter, and she also decides to help out. And so they're poking and prodding around, and Carol's asking for an interview with a local drug lord named Stubbs, and she gets an interview from him, but then she's also roughed up. If we see earlier, she was walking by, and she got a little roughed up by this character named Boros, and he works for Jackie Stubbs. Hawk steps in and saves her, but then warns her to be more careful. Well, through her friend Aisha, she's able to get a short interview with Jackie Stubbs, but when she's escorted out of his building, Burroughs is waiting for her, and he beats her up. And so she doesn't run. She's not scared. So she stays in the fight. And Hawk also starts investigating it, and he finds out that Burroughs has roughed her up, and so now he's looking for the supplier, and he's looking for Burroughs, not knowing that Burroughs is the go-between between Stubbs and the supplier, who happens to be a diplomat named Julian. That's right, he's a diplomat from another country. He's been selling laced heroin to an American drug lord. Of course, this brings a drug war into play between Harker, who owns one territory, and Stubbs, who owns the other. Their territories are both being attacked, and they're starting to lose users. They're starting to leave because they can't trust the product that's hitting the street. God, what an episode, right? So go ahead and take it to the end here real quick, because I want to talk about what about the episode itself. Um, there's a little bit of gunplay, and then we find out. Then they find out that the diplomat, because of Aisha was dies, she gets beaten up by Burroughs, and then she's not a drug user, but he injects her with a shot, and he doesn't know that it's laced. He just thinks he's giving her a shot of heroin, but of course it kills her. And and then we find out, then Burroughs is being hunted, and Hawk finally catches him, and they have a brief gun exchange before Hawk shoots and wounds him, and then Burroughs starts singing like a bird, and we find out that indeed the Julian, the diplomat, has been caught, but there's nothing nobody can do about it. He has diplomatic immunity. He's going to get away with stone cold murder, except that somehow, some way, the diplomat whose daughter has died, he goes through channels, and they go to another country that's by the suspected killer, and there's a little bit of international justice at the end of this episode. So this is a good, actually I'll just take it off right off the bat. This episode was a little bit ahead of its time. Now I know we've seen this before, poison, drugs, or whatnot. But when I was watching this episode, I just couldn't help but think about, back then, 1989, which is over 30 years ago, and yet here today we still have the same thing going on here now. Of course, it's not being laced with strychnine; it's being laced with fentanyl. Fentanyl is an incredibly dangerous drug, and it can kill you so fast, and you have no chance against it. But it's being laced with fentanyl, and so it's still going on. And the story is a little bit ahead of its time because of that. The potency of the drugs being cut and being sold on the street. What's really interesting about this episode, as far as names go, earlier in the series we had a uncredited appearance, so he played like an extra or a mop guy or whatever. But he didn't have any lines. William Fichtner had already been on an earlier episode. Well, this time he's the main heavy. He plays Burroughs, and wow, William Fichtner, man, that guy is so intense. Yeah, he's a piece of work in this one. But of course, he runs afoul of Hawk because he roughs up his reporter friend, and Hawk, he puts a bullet into him, and while Burroughs is begging for his life, Hawk he trades his life in for information. I really like, again, it shows you the depth of the character. The opening scene, and you see Hawk is there at an embassy event. Now, those invitations just don't come lightly. I mean, it's not like you and I could ever just get an invite to go to the function like that. You gotta have some high-powered connections. And again, it shows that Hawk has those connections because of whatever he's done in the past. So it's really cool to see that. And he's trusted in the diplomatic corps. They trust him. The ending really does suit. It fits. I mean, a lot of people say, well, that seems sort of a cheesy way out, but that's sort of how things work. Don't be fooled. Governments can, we already seen that several incidences of this, where governments have reached out and killed people who they consider enemy of the state. In this case, that's what happened to Julian. He gets killed by, a country who, because of his actions, cost one of their diplomats their daughter. So that's, so it's sort of like the diplomatic community taking care of its own. That being said, the show itself seemed to lag a little bit. It sort of dragged. It wasn't a crisp episode. It got to go where it went to, as far as the story goes, but it just wasn't very exciting. Not as much exciting as it should have been. This could have been really a really intense episode, but it was sort of like by the numbers. And that was a little disappointing to see because it was good. I mean, the plot was good, but the execution, again, a little bit soft. Still liked it. Still liked the episode. It's cool seeing some of the people are in the episode. William Fisher, like I said, Sharon Washington, like I said, it was cool, but it just didn't have quite the punch like I expected it to have. But yeah, that's the episode for today. This is our, like I said, this is our 8th one. So after today, we have 5 more episodes. Only 5 more episodes of Hawk. But I thought this was going to be just a one-time runoff. I was going to do a Man Called Hawk, and then I was going to, for my Tubi Tuesday. But I decided that I'm going to continue it. I'm going to take a look at another short-run series, and I will announce that next week, what I'm going to be covering, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're new to the channel and you like what you're hearing, consider hitting the notification, hitting the sub button, the notification bell, and then leave a comment down below. It's an interesting question I'll throw out your way, since this episode is centered on this, but have you ever had anybody or know anybody that's had an issue with drugs? I know it's a really weird question to ask, but I don't know why. But this episode with the laced heroin really struck a nerve because of what's happening in my city in Detroit. There's been a lot of deaths affected by heroin laced fentanyl. But have you ever had anybody that's been affected by that? Been touched by that? Let me know. I'm just curious. I know, weird, but I'm just curious. All right, so that's it for me. Thanks for watching, and we will see you for the next episode of A Man Called Hawk. All right, thanks so much for watching, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.